The Timberwolves win again, beating the shorthanded Dallas Mavericks by 13 points. We'll talk about Naz Reid and Julius Randle's big game carrying the offense, and also three big things, including some key bench performances. Joan Beringer takes front and center stage next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hopefully you're having a fantastic week. It's a victory Thursday and also a game day after the Timberwolves beat the shorthanded Dallas Mavericks on the road last night. Tonight, the defending champion OKC Thunder, and remains to be seen who plays for both teams, frankly, on a back-to-back for the Wolves and a banged-up OKC team. We'll talk about that a little bit toward the end of the show, but it is the post-game pod after the Wolves win over the Mavs on Wednesday. And yes, they were missing some guys, some significant players, but nonetheless, still an overall solid performance from the Timberwolves. And at this point, the Wolves will take what they can get as they head ever closer toward the trade deadline. We're just a week away now, and everything seems magnified, which is part of my three big things for today's show. That's where we'll start, is some key rotation notes about guys that played well and, roles that were, filled in a good way during this game. We'll talk about some of the nuts and bolts of this game. Randle had a really nice offensive game. Joan Beringer getting rotation minutes with Rudy Gobert out with foul trouble for a decent chunk of this game. A lot of Beringer talk here today as well. I thought he was fantastic. So a lot to get to here on the post-game pod. We'll close with individual studs and duds and a peek ahead, peek at the Western Conference standings, and also Wolves Thunder tonight, who may or may not play for OKC. We'll do all that on today's show. First, a big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, Locked On Wolves is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. All right, so we got to start with who didn't play for Dallas. Obviously, Cooper Flagg was out. Of course, Anthony Davis is out for an extended period of time. Klay Thompson actually ended up not playing as well. He had been playing for them and then missed, the last game. I think they said he wasn't going to play. That's right. They hadn't played since Saturday because they had the game on Sunday postponed, traveled to Milwaukee. So that with 3 days off, Klay Thompson had played Saturday, so I figured he'd play. He's a 20 or less minutes a game guy for them at this point anyway. So no Klay Thompson, no Cooper Flagg, of course, no Anthony Davis. Still, PJ Washington gave the Wolves what they could handle, especially in the fourth quarter. Daniel Gafford always plays the Wolves tough. This is still a solid team, even without those guys. But we have to start with who wasn't available, right? It's not exactly what happened the other night when the Wolves won a shorthanded game, but that's what against Golden State. But that's what the Wolves had to deal with in this game, was a shorthanded Mavs team, and it took a little while for the Timberwolves to kind of right the ship themselves. Early in the game, Minnesota only led by 2 after the first quarter, and Dallas was like a turnover fest. They gave up, I think they turned the ball over on 3 of their first 4 possessions. It was just unreal. Nick Angstad from Locked On Mavs texted me early in the game, texted me all the turnover records for the NBA and the Mavs, and steal records for the Timberwolves, because it just kind of felt like we were headed that way. By the way, the Wolves actually ended up only 3 steals off of their franchise record, based on what Nick sent me. And obviously the Mavs kind of calmed down a little bit turnover-wise, but early in this game, it felt like it was crazy. And Minnesota, you look up, they're only up 2 because the offense was very sloppy once again to start the game for the Timberwolves. Not as much sloppy in the turnover sense. They finished with just 12 turnovers as a team, which is fine, especially after the debacles against the Warriors, both of them over the weekend. Or I guess Sunday and Monday. But just passes slightly offline, missing cutters, missing hit-ahead passes, just bobbling the ball, a lot of picking up your dribble and getting stuck stuff, weird, sloppy-ish things happening. There's just no flow to the Wolves offense. They finished with 31 points in the first quarter because of the Dallas turnovers. They got a lot of transition opportunities and open looks and stuff like that, but there just wasn't much flow. And the defense was pretty shoddy as well. A couple of the Dallas bigs, really, it was only Dallas bigs. Nobody in their backcourt, Max Christie didn't score until the fourth quarter, I don't think. it was just a lot of like Najee Marshall early and Daniel Gafford and then PJ Washington late. But the Wolves defense was a little bit disappointing, just not very locked in. I mean, I would say across the board, Anthony Edwards, I don't think was particularly good defensively in this game. Jaden was just fine. Like you'd expect more. Julius has struggled for a while defensively. So that was a bit of a concern early in this game. And then ultimately the Wolves got up 10 at halftime. They were up 17 going into the fourth quarter. Dallas pushed back a lot of PJ Washington middle of the fourth. It kept it from being a complete blowout, which would have been nice on the front end of a back-to-back to be able to give some guys rest. Rudy ended up only playing 21 minutes because of the foul trouble, but Anthony Edwards, which by the way, that was a big reason. We'll get into this in a second, but a big reason for the points that they gave up early was Rudy was off the floor because of the foul trouble. But Edwards had to play 38 minutes. Nobody else played more than 34 in part due to foul trouble. But the fact that Dallas pushed in the fourth quarter and made this thing relatively interesting with just a few minutes to play hurt the Wolves on the front night of a back-to-back. All right, let's get into my three big things from this one. I'll hit these fairly quick, and then we'll get into a couple. Well, actually, along the way, we'll hit some individual performances. Let's start with the yes buts, because the Wolves won this game by 13, but we have to acknowledge it was a shorthanded opponent that the Wolves should have beaten anyway. So let's hit the yes buts. First, defensive rebounding and second chance opportunities for Dallas. You look up and ultimately Dallas only out offensive rebounded Minnesota by 3. They had 14 offensive rebounds. But when this game was still in the balance, like the Wolves did some pretty good offensive rebounding early in the game themselves. But Dallas ultimately was a +8 on the glass. At one point in the first half, they were +11 on the glass. And a lot of it was offensive rebounding and second chance points that they were getting because Minnesota just was not locked in on the glass. And this is something I talked about in the in the preview of this game, was that the Wolves can't afford to lose the rebounding battle to Dallas, especially a shorthanded Dallas team that's not going to make threes, and they didn't. They're not going to hurt you in a lot of other ways, but if you give them multiple bites at the apple, they're eventually going to hurt you just like any NBA team would. And I thought the rebounding was not good. Rudy's foul trouble was a problem. Gobert picked up 2 fouls very quickly. I thought the second one easily could have been called on DiVincenzo, and they called it on Gobert. And the Wolves brought in Beringer, and Beringer played well. We're going to talk more about him. But I have said so much on this show already. I said this in Summer League. Beringer really struggles as a defensive rebounder. That is his number one blind spot. And once again, you look at the box score, he played 60 minutes. He had 0 defensive rebounds. 0 defensive rebounds for Joan Beringer. Gobert, for his part, only had 6 total rebounds, 4 defensive rebounds in 21 minutes, which actually isn't great either. But the answer, and Jim Peterson said this on the Wolves broadcast, he was like, well, Gobert's out with foul trouble, so they're going to bring Beringer because they're struggling on the glass. Yeah, he's not going to help you on the defensive glass right now. The energy helps on the offensive glass, and he had a couple of huge offensive rebounds early in this game. I mean, he had 4 of Minnesota's 11 offensive rebounds. He had one where he like reached over somebody, and it's not an over the back call because it's not actually a call. If you're taller and you have longer arms, you can reach over someone and grab the basketball as long as you're not pushing them in the back, hit him in the head, etc. And he did that, kicked it out, and I forget who hit the 3. I think it was Conley, but got the Wolves a wide open 3. There were a couple of hustle plays like that, and that's why you bring Beringer in the game, is to stimulate that offense with offensive rebounding. He's not going to help your defensive rebound. The technique is horrible. He doesn't know. He's not great at boxing out, and he's not great at finding a guy to box out. And when he does, he's not really strong enough to hold off, especially these Dallas bigs, right? The Gaffords and the Najee Marshalls, and these guys that are a little bit more physical with the Mavericks. Which, remember, physicality the Wolves really struggled with a lot of these same bigs. PJ Washington, you don't think of as like an ultra physical guy, but he can be. And he's big. And the Wolves struggled with that in the conference finals a couple years ago. So Beringer overall was good. We'll talk more about him. But the defensive rebounding, he was one of the culprits. It continues to be a blind spot for him. We're talking about a 19-year-old. All the caveats apply. But it's important to point out that was a problem in this game for the Timberwolves. And then the second of my yes buts from this one is defending without fouling. Now, this game was poorly officiated. I thought they called too much on both ends of the floor. Just straight up. I mean, any game where, let's see, the teams committed a combined 44 personal fouls, and there were a combined, see if I can do this math, 66 free throws between the two teams. Dallas shot 12 more than Minnesota, yes, but that's not what I'm mad about. I'm just mad they called so many fouls. And also, like, the Wolves were asking for it. They got lazy again. And we said this, it wasn't the Warriors games, it was the games before this where there was a couple games in there during this losing streak where the Wolves just didn't defend, which obviously is a major problem. And then it was like, all right, we'll half defend it, but we're going to grab instead of actually move our feet. And that's when they started giving up a ton of free throws per game. This game was not quite as offensive when it comes to that. I thought the effort was a little bit better, but there was a lot of grabbing and holding. And Jaden, I think on like the same possession, got called for 2 fouls for just holding somebody that was trying to get into a cut, just like wrapping his arms around him, or instead of bumping him and sticking with him, right? Instead of moving your feet, being aggressive and staying in front of a guy or staying with a guy, like there's just a lot of grabbing and holding and laziness defensively, and that led to 39 Mavericks free throws, which the Mavs made 3 3-pointers in this entire game. And that's what kept them in it, was the fact that Minnesota couldn't defend without fouling. Again, I thought the officiating was poor. I thought they called too much. And then near the end of the game, just like weren't calling anything on the other end of the floor. It was very weird. But I blame the Timberwolves for their lack of, attention to detail defensively, I guess is how I would put it. All right. I have 2 more of my 3 big things to get to. We'll close with individual studs and duds. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at TurboTax. Tax season does not have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Gives you just under a month to get that done. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. The NBA trade deadline is basically here. We're just a week away, a week from today. And we want to give you a free month of the new Everydayer Club to help you get ready. If you need a group chat to keep up with the chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to a group chat on Discord just for Wolves fans, plus national chats where you can hang out with the fans from around the league. I'm in the Wolves chat daily, so go hop in there in the Discord. Got some good, some Giannis trade banter going on. We'll talk a little bit about that on the show, given the I guess the fact that officially he's likely to be traded out. The Wolves are apparently a suitor. I'm dubious that it's realistic at all, but we'll talk about it a little bit more on the show. We are talking about it currently in the Discord. You also get ad-free versions of this show. If you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, you use the code DEADLINE, you'll get your first month free. So a month free of ad-free Locked On Wolves, a month free of Discord channel access. If you love it, you can continue from there on. Again, code DEADLINE. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Head to lockedonwolves.supercast.com. Again, lockedonwolves.supercast.com, or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. All right. So my first of my 3 big things was the yes buts, the defensive rebounding, the second chance points issues. And then also defending without fouling, once again, an issue for the Wolves. My next thing, Joan Beringer was fantastic. And I know I already complained about the defensive rebounding, but everything else was great. The instincts, which again, I feel like I need to say this every time for the people in the back, or I guess the people that haven't heard every show when I talk about Beringer. He's good at everything else. And offensive rebounding is about effort and instinct and length and athleticism, and he has all of those things. It's about knowing where you see the shot go up. You think you know where the ball is going to go. You go there and you go get it. That's all it is. There's no thinking. And also, really, for the most part, the choices he makes when he's got the ball in his hands off of a rebound. Do I go back up? Do I kick it out? Do I, hold it and wait, but I don't bring it down below my waist? Like, stuff like that. Like, that's all relevant for a guy who's 19, has been playing basketball for less than 5 years. And he does it all very well. It seems very instinctual to him. And he was really, really good. Defensively, he was great. He altered several shots that, he had the one big loud block in the second half that he got up to the square on the backboard and swatted a shot. Like, you can see he's already an NBA rotation guy, and there is a true star in the making with Joan Beringer. Like, the instincts, the size, the athleticism, the feel around the basket, the understanding and the timing of when do I come from the weak side to block a shot, when do I not. The screen setting is actually pretty good. It's obviously not Gobert caliber, but it's not bad for a guy with his limited experience. A lot to like about Joan Beringer. And honestly, what I put in my notes is Beringer in the non-Gobert minutes is super important. Figure it out. Find a way to get him on the floor more often. And I know I said this a couple weeks ago. It's going to come at the expense of Julius Randle or Naz Reid. That's fine. Now you got 4 bigs. Just figure it out. He's got to play, especially when Gobert's off the floor. Like, you obviously can't play them together. So I guess it would have to be when Gobert's off the floor. But I think more of the non-Gobert minutes should be Beringer minutes. There's still a little bit too much of Naz and Randle together in this game. And I haven't pulled the exact lineup data from this game to prove this, but just the individual plus minus, which is noisy. It doesn't tell the full story. But when you look at Naz and Randle, and Naz is a +6 and Randle's a +2, and then you look at Gobert, he's a +9. You look at Beringer, he's a +11. What does that tell you? It tells you that the Wolves were better with one of Beringer or Gobert on the floor than they were with Reid and Randle together, which you don't need to wait for those numbers to come out to know that. You don't need to wait for this box score to tell you. Like we've been saying it all season on the show, Randle and Naz together is a losing recipe defensively, and they have to do enough offensively to justify playing together. The one of Gobert and Beringer should be on the floor the vast majority of the time. And in this game, that was the case for roughly 37, 38 minutes of the 48 in the game. And the minutes where they weren't on the floor weren't as good. Beringer is legit good defensively, and he has good feel offensively. The defensive rebounding is a problem, and they've got to figure it out. If they're going to play, that's the big if, right? Because you're going to give something up on the defensive glass. He's just too slight. The technique isn't there. The instincts don't help you as much on the defensive glass as they do on the offensive glass. I don't know if it's like the rest of your 4 positions have to have stronger rebounders out there when he's out there, and you just don't play him with, Bones Highland's actually been decent on the glass for a guard, but you don't play him with Mike Conley, and you try and play him with Jalen Clark, but then you lose you have another really non-shooter out there when Jalen Clark's on the floor. So it does get a bit sticky when you dig into the rotations, but you just got to find a way to get Beringer on the court more frequently. He's just a good player. My last thing is just kind of something that I've been monitoring on the show and needs to be monitored now that we're a week exactly out from the trade deadline. Mike Conley showed some life in this game. Now, he hasn't in a while, and so I'm not a Mike Conley apologist for this season. Obviously, I'm talking about this season. Mike Conley's been incredible in the past. 2 years ago, he was basically saved the Wolves season, was awesome. I guess it was 3 years ago they traded for him. 2 years ago, he was still awesome when they went to the conference finals the first time. This season specifically, though, he's clearly lost a step. I don't need to repeat all that. He hasn't made three-pointers very well. He hasn't defended well. He was good in this game. He knocked out a couple of threes, had 5 assists, which was second on the team, and he only played 23 minutes. Still not great defensively. Can't stay in front of guys, but still a really good team defender. And that matters. Having a guy on the floor that knows what he's doing defensively matters. I still think he's probably pound for pound the Wolves' worst perimeter defender in terms of one-on-one. Now Bones has to apply himself, which he mostly does, and then I think he's passable. Jalen Clark is always good defensively. DiVincenzo, I think, has been spotty defensively. He obviously had 5 steals in this game and played really hard on that end of the floor, which he needs to right now since he's not doing as much offensively. All that to say, I would say the Conley and the Bones minutes were both good in this game. Conley had 6 points, made 2 threes, had 5 assists, had a legit block in this game, also had a steal. Bones Highland had 7 points in just 12 minutes without hitting a 3, had a nice and one. Had a couple nice drives to the basket, actually. 4 rebounds, 2 assists in 12 minutes. They both played well. And I think monitoring that what I would call the 7th/8th rotation spot, right? Because it's the 5 starters, it's Naz Reid, and then it's some combination of Conley and Highland, depending on the night. Monitoring those guys is important. As silly as it is, the last week before the deadline gets magnified because it is the deadline. And even though what they did in October, November, December matters, it's what they do in late January that is magnified and ultimately decides whether or not a trade happens. And if these guys play really well over the next few games, it probably minimizes the chance the Wolves do something significant. If they don't, and this was a blip, and they both are terrible against OKC or whatever, then maybe it increases the chances that Mike Conley says, all right, I need Trey Jones. I need Ayo Dosunmu. I need Kobe White. I need some other guard. I need Malik Monk or Keon Ellis is the other one that's a recent rumor to the Wolves as a possibility. Like, I think it's human nature. And it's also, this is the last chance. Deadlines create action, right? Deadlines make deals happen. And if they don't play well, it magnifies some of the Wolves' issues. But they both played well in this game, which is a little bit unusual based on what we've seen of these guys for the most part this season. I know Bones has been pretty good most of the time, but it's still a position you'd like to upgrade, both his and the Conley one. And if you acquire somebody like, for the sake of argument, a Kobe White, whether or not Conley's traded, this new player is going to eat into Mike Conley's minutes. Even if they manage to do it by only trading Dillingham and Leonard Miller or whatever, Dillingham and TJ Shannon. And I know there's reporting that the Wolves don't want to trade Conley. Well, we know that. We know that he's important to the locker room, but you might have to. All that to say, no matter what you do, that's the position you're upgrading, is the Conley/Bones position. So it's important to note how those guys are playing. And they played well in this game. All right, let's close with individual studs and duds. We'll hit the Thunder game tonight, who may or may not play for OKC, and we'll peek ahead at the standings, or peek at the standings. Do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you could grow savings. For me, it is subscription services. It's streaming. It's the occasional like random thing here or there that I forget that I signed up for and I intended to cancel and just didn't. Also food delivery, that gets me sometimes too. And that one's a little bit easier to see, or to keep track of. But if you see it all in one place, that's what really helps you. The automatic transaction categorization is a game changer. You can see exactly where your money's going each month. You can set budgets and goals like, hey, I only want to spend this much on food delivery this month. You can see what your large transactions are. You can check your upcoming bills, and if you've got any low balances. It even consolidates your checking, savings, loans, and investments into a single dashboard so you can get a clear view of your entire financial picture. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockdown. That's rocketmoney.com/lockdown. rocketmoney.com/lockdown. All right, individual studs and duds from this one was kind of a weird one in that regard. We haven't even really talked about Anthony Edwards. This was a strange Ant game. It wasn't bad. It was just different. It was like he wasn't very good defensively. He was very quiet offensively until he hit a couple of big shots. Then he gets teed up down the stretch because he's not getting a foul call, which he was right. It should have been a foul call. It's just a weird kind of all over the place Ant game. So I didn't mean to start with him. Let's start with it is tough because I feel like it was kind of a mixed bag performance. We got to talk Julius Randle. He was not great defensively. There were a couple of bad possessions offensively where he was like, I'm the only guy that's scoring, so therefore I'm not going to pass. And I think it was third quarter. Maybe we saw a couple of those consecutively where there's one that led to a turnover. There's one second quarter that was bad that led to a bad shot where he never passed. There was one in the third or fourth quarter where it was just fourth quarter, actually two early in the fourth quarter, where Chris Finch then called a timeout and benched him, where he got trapped and just turned it over. So, like, that's the Julius Randle that New York Knicks fans were excited to get rid of and that we saw occasionally early last season. But for the most part, he was really good at this game. It's just, everybody has those possessions. It's just more glaring when it's Julius Randle because of the way he pounds the rock into the floor and does something ridiculous like turn it over or shoot a terrible shot. But he was so good from the mid-range, the little, 10, 15-foot fade away from the elbows and in that he does was unstoppable in this game. He was 12 of 21 from the floor, didn't even make a three, got to the line 7 times, tied for most on the team, and had 31 points, just 5 rebounds, so he contributed to the defensive rebounding problems. He did have 4 assists, and only that 1 turnover just stands out because it was so bad. He had a steal. Overall, a good Julius Randle game. He's not the only guy that struggled on the glass and struggled defensively, not the only guy that threw away a couple offensive possessions. And honestly, the Wolves don't win without what he did early in this game to kind of pace the offense. And then a couple things he did in the second half as well when Dallas was kind of hanging around. So a good overall Julius Randle game. Naz Reid also, haven't talked a lot about Naz. 23 points on 17 shots for Naz Reid, just 3 of 10 outside the arc and only 2 free throw attempts. He did have 8 rebounds, which led the team. 3 assists, but he had 4 turnovers. He also had 3 steals and a block. So like I said, very much a mixed bag for many of these guys. I thought everybody was kind of sort of at times going through the motions, which is concerning. And we've seen too much of that this year from the Wolves, but he also hit a couple of big shots when he needed to. Like he was left open and knocked down a couple of open threes in the second half that he needed to hit. Only 3 guys scored in double figures for the Wolves. They all scored more than 20. And then otherwise it was just a lot of like hyper balanced guys scoring between 5 and 8 points in this game. So what Naz did offensively was really important. My third stud, it's got to be Joan Beringer. With the Gobert foul trouble, the extra possessions he created with his 4 offensive rebounds, shooting 3 of 4, making 3 of 4 free throws. Surely I didn't look at this. It's got to be a career high 9 points for Beringer. He was a plus 11, second highest plus minus on the team. Because of the Gobert foul trouble, and I talked about this more broadly in terms of the number of free throws the Mavs shot, but at one point, McDaniels, Gobert, and Naz all had 4 fouls, and none of them played more than 30 minutes because of foul trouble. And so what Beringer was able to give you defensively to help hold the Mavs to 105 points in this game on, 45% shooting is fine. They were just 3 of 18 on threes. And the Wolves did foul a lot. They were fortunate Dallas missed a lot of free throws, but Beringer was really vital to what the Wolves did defensively. And honestly, I'm not just saying this because it's exciting for the shiny new toy to play well. I thought he was one of their top 3 players in this game. I really do. And so he gets a stud. We talked briefly about Ant. The offense was fine. Some weird vibe stuff from him, I think, late in this game. He was very frustrated with the non-foul calls. I don't know. I'm sure he's frustrated with the toe injury. No idea if he's playing tonight against the Thunder. He's missed a lot of games here recently, and it kind of looked like it in this game. He was a little rusty, I would say sluggish is maybe the right word. Like, other than he turned the ball over once in the first half and sprinted back to try and stop a fast break, I haven't seen him sprint that hard in a long time. So it's not like he's like so banged up to the point he can't play hard. It's just he seemed a little sluggish in this game. And you look up and he still got 26 and 6, was 3 of 4 outside the arc, and led the team in plus minus. So I'm not dragging his performance entirely. It just didn't feel like normal Anthony Edwards, and I'm sure the toe has something to do with it. But hopefully he plays against the Thunder tonight. Dud-wise, I don't really have any duds. DiVincenzo was quiet. He had 5 steals, was important early. I guess Jaden McDaniels, I would say. He was the only guy on the team that somehow managed to be a plus minus. They won by 13, and Jaden was a -4. Nobody else was worse than a +2. So, I thought the defense was spotty. The offense wasn't there. They tried again. Finch has been doing this too much, I think, but no Randle, no Ant on the floor. And it's like, all right, well, if that's the case, then Jaden McDaniels has to do something offensively. And he just didn't look aggressive. He shot a couple step back threes when it's like, hey man, just drive and do your floater thing or your fadeaway that you do from 8-10 feet away. Just less aggressive in this game. So I'd say he's my only dud in this one. All right. Moving on. Tonight, the Timberwolves play the Thunder, and OKC's really banged up. Alex Caruso didn't play the other night. Cason Wallace didn't play the other night. J-Dub, Jalen Williams is out for at least another week, I think. So, and as of right now, as of this recording, Caruso and Wallace are both listed as questionable. They're day-to-day. They're questionable for the Wolves game. We don't know about Ant. Presumably, he's the only guy in the injury report. I don't know that as of this recording. But given the fact that it's a back-to-back and it would still even be the Wolves' fourth game in 5 days and Ant's third game in 5 days, I don't know. It feels very 50-50 that he plays. I feel like he's going to want to get out there and play against SGA, knowing Ant and the competitor that he is. And SGA doesn't miss games, really. He's missed 2 all season. So presumably both of those guys will be on the floor. This is an Amazon Prime game. So it's an 8:30 tip at Target Center, a late Thursday night tip. Now, I say all that. Like, Chet Holmgren's playing. Hartenstein is supposed to be back healthy. He hasn't played in a while, but he's supposed to make his return against the Wolves on tonight. So it'll be obviously a very intriguing matchup, even with the injuries. I think this will be a lot of fun. We know what to look out for in this matchup. It's something we've seen a lot of, and the Wolves, of course, won last time around. So a lot to look forward to, assuming Ant plays in this game. As of right now, FanDuel has the Timberwolves as 6-point underdogs without knowing whether or not Anthony Edwards is playing. So the Thunder favored by 6 at Minnesota tonight. So that should be a lot of fun. And standings wise, this is important. The Wolves have stabilized now at 6. I say that they're effectively tied with the Lakers and Suns. They're technically tied with the Lakers, who have played 2 less games, and they're a half game ahead of the Suns. The Wolves have played 1 more game, and they won that game. So they're tied in the loss column. So right now, officially, the Lakers are 5, the Wolves are 6, and the Suns are 7 in the Western Conference. The Wolves are a half game only behind the Rockets in 4. So, and the Rockets, by the way, lost. I think they got blown out. They got blown out by the Spurs on Wednesday. So if all the Wolves do is, if they win, if they beat the Thunder and the Rockets lose their next time out, and the Lakers lose, then the Wolves are right back at number 4. I mean, we're just going to be doing this the rest of the season. And Houston, by the way, does play tonight on a back-to-back against the Hawks. So the Wolves are going to be kind of sliding back and forth from 4 to 7. It's like this group of teams that are within a game of each other: Houston, the Lakers, the Wolves, and the Suns. So that'll be something we'll be watching here pretty regularly. All right, live postcast tonight with Jack and Luke. Of course, Jack will be at the game. We'll give you the live reaction on YouTube on the Locked On Wolves channel. If you miss it live, you can check it out right here on the audio feed, and then I'll be back tomorrow with the post-game pod following Wolves Thunder. Big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. A reminder, if you haven't signed up for the Locked On Everydayer Club, you could do that if you never miss an episode. It is for you. Get Locked On Wolves ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Head to lockedonwolves.supercast.com to get signed up. Of course, Locked On Wolves is also part of that very same Locked On Podcast Network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.